So folks, we are about to delve also into part two of the interesting but eye-opening Chad and Lori Daybell case, part two, which is going to be quite a bit shorter than the part one, which is still only around an hour, keeping with things appropriate in the appropriate setting. But this part two is going to be quite eye-opening because I'm going to take you on a tour, essentially, of one of the buildings, possibly kind of the shed area, representation of the shed and so forth, of where they found the bodies when they dug up Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow. And it's such an important piece because I've done this similar thing before, kind of with the beginnings of the Koberger case and another case that's out there in South Carolina as well. And I want you to be able to get a feel for it for yourself so you can see that this whole facade, this element that Lori has really been exhibiting this whole time, Lori Vallow, is really kind of a grandiose facade. And that when you see some of the evidence, because I'm going to get the sketches and I'm going to see if I can get physical photographs here, because in the day two of the trial, things are much, much shorter because it focuses on Hermosillo's testimony regarding this evidence that they find in the shed kind of area, and also all of the evidence that they find in the house and the condo. And I want you to take a look at some of these key items here, specifically some of the firearms and things like that appear to have been collected. Let's see if we can get some first-hand screenshots of that as well, so that you can get kind of a clearer picture now, just like in the John Benet Ramsey case, actually, that the things that Lori Vallow has been telling the court and telling the public are much, much markedly different than what is actually real. And the same is actually true for Chad Daybell as well. But I wanted to point it out because something fascinating happens during day two. When Lori Vallow has this kind of little bit of a breakdown that the reporting she has, and she goes out in the court lobby, John Pryor comes in. And this is something I want you guys to pay very close attention to, because the Lori you know on YouTube has also been pointing this out. It's an important key element here. John Pryor came in and he started talking to Archibald, and he was in the overflow room, and we still have no understanding at this time yet of what they were talking about or what was being discussed. But that and a few key issues are going to be fleshed out here and covered in part two. So look forward to this. It's going to be a little shorter, but it's going to be potent and it's going to be amazing. So make sure to like, subscribe, and also share this with the general public, and continue to get the awareness raised on the Chad and Lori Daybell trial. Here we go, right here in the JTC channel. We've had this kind of situation under a microscope for a while. Us personally, with the assembly and assemblies of the state assembly, because we don't totally trust any of them. So we've had this under the microscope, but this is the key issue, right? This is where they find all of the artillery, they find weapons, and they found over, I think it was like 1,000 different rounds of ammunition and things. So on Tuesday, the 7th day of Lori Vallow Daybell's homicide trial, the Rexburg police Detective Ray Hermosillo took the stand to give testimony of his role in the investigation on the disappearance of J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. And in describing the search of Lori's home, Hermosillo also confirmed police discovered 2 rifles, 2 silencers, 1 handgun, a ghillie suit, and a set of tarps, apparently. Hermosillo, a 22-year veteran of Rexburg police, conducted a part-time surveillance on the Lori Vallow home, and it was from November 1st, 2019 to November 15th, 2019 for the Gilbert police. Gilbert police were interested in the Jeep Wrangler owned by the defendant, they claimed, that may have had a connection to the attempted shooting. On November 25th, Hermosillo was asked by Arizona authorities to conduct a welfare check on behalf of his grandmother, Kay Woodcock, for JJ, who they had never heard from since that time. Upon arriving outside Lori's town home, Hermosillo and his partner, the detective Dave Holt, encountered Alex Cox and Chad Daybell sitting in the Cox pickup truck. Hermosillo testified that the pair was initially silent and looked at each other when asked about JJ's whereabouts. When asked a second and third time, Alex told the detectives that he was with Kay Woodcock, even though this was proven untrue. Hermosillo responded that this was unlikely given Woodcock requested a welfare check, to which Cox and Daybell once again attempted to cover their first response. After knocking on Lori's door with no answer, Hermosillo caught Chad leaving the complex in a type of SUV, they claim, and asked when was the last time that he saw J.J. Vallow. Chad responded it had been in October, but that he hardly knew anything about Lori anymore. Hermosillo said he already knew of the time that the two had gotten married. Once authorities got a hold of Lori, she told them that J.J. Vallow was in Arizona with Melanie Gibb, and Tylee Ryan was somewhere else. Gibb denied this, so authorities obtained a search warrant the following morning. When police arrived, Lori had disappeared, apparently. Most of her belongings were left behind except for this kind of strand of odd clothing. The hangers in the closet were empty. In the garage, Hermosillo discovered the 2 rifles, 2 silencers, 1 handgun, a ghillie suit, and some blue tarps or tarps of some kind that were out there for some reason. One of the rifles was threaded to hold a silencer, and Boudreaux, who testified in court Monday, said that the rifle was used to shoot at him from a Jeep in his driveway, he claimed. Later in the testimony, Hermosillo described the search of Chad Daybell's property on June 9, 2020, after Chad was served with the warrant, where he went to his car to make a phone call. Hermosillo recalled seeing Chad look over his shoulder and keep looking backwards to a tree where J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan were eventually found. And that's where J.J. Vallow was found actually buried in wrapped plastic garbage bags, specialty type of garbage bags. And that's going to be gone over here just for a minute too. John Thomas challenged Hermosillo on the recollection during cross, arguing that he could not have possibly known exactly where his eyes pointed. Hermosillo maintained a statement with Thomas, concluding, "We'll have to agree to disagree based upon the video footage we have now." The court was shown photographs of J.J. Vallow's body enveloped in the black trash bags and these kinds of garbage bags. The 7-year-old was found buried by a tree near a pond in Chad Daybell's yard. The area caught the attention of searchers because it had shorter than normal grass, and this appeared to visually upset both Vallow and Daybell, who requested to be excused, or Lori Vallow Daybell, who had requested to be excused from the day's proceeding. Nate Eaton of East Idaho News says she appeared upset following the court's return from lunch and after a recess during which she spoke with attorneys and re-entered the court appearing to have been under distress. Judge Stephen Boyce denied the request, saying that to preserve due process and fair trial, she should be required to stay in her seat the entire time. The state continued to exhibit graphic photographs and evidence that showed J.J. Vallow's autopsy as well as Tylee Ryan's remains after they had been dug up. And once the plastic bag was removed from J.J. Vallow's body, Hermosillo said that the boy was found with his arms and ankles bound together with duct tape, head covered completely in a type of white, hefty trash bag, and his mouth covered in duct tape. His face was dark, and it was all completely green and gushing out due to decomposition of the bruises that were left. Tyler's remains were in the Daybell Pet Cemetery also, and were in burnt pieces, many of which were found melted in a green bucket. Teeth and bone fragments belonging to 17-year-old Tylee Ryan were found directly inside the fire pit. So absolutely unbelievable what they discovered as it's described in the hearing. July 11th, 2019, Charles Vallow officially passes away. September 3rd, 2019, Lori, Tylee, and J.J. Vallow were moved to Rexburg. And on October 2nd, 2019, they attempted a official shooting to apparently try to kill Brandon Boudreaux. That's what they say. October 9th, 2019, attempted shooting of Tammy Daybell. And then October 19th of 2019, Tammy Daybell officially dies from what they claim are natural causes and is later confirmed to be asphyxiation. The key dates that came following that time was November 1st, 2019, Fremont County contacts Hermosillo about conducting surveillance. November 4th, 2019, the Jeep Wrangler is seized and they match a VIN number directly to Tylee Ryan's vehicle again, which goes back directly to Alex Cox. November 5th, 2019, Chad and Lori are married. November 25th, 2019, a welfare check occurs again. November 26th, 2019, Hermosillo then makes contact with Alex and Chad Daybell. November 27th of 2019, the search warrant is executed on Lori's various homes. And June 9th, 2020, search warrant executed at Chad Daybell's property in back. June 10th of 2020, Hermosillo then goes to Ada County Coroner Office to see the J.J. Vallow autopsy because it was not done correctly. The trial is expected to continue for at least another month. So, and this is fascinating, of course, because at the time they were still looking into Joseph Ryan. And now the autopsy report that's been done on Joseph Ryan, Joseph Ryan, who was essentially married to Lori Vallow, is now confirmed to not be correct. They said that the autopsy originally on Joseph Ryan was he had an accident and then he apparently passed away in his sleep. But now it's confirmed that no, he was possibly murdered. In other words, it's looking more and more likely at this point that Lori Vallow had something very clear to do with Joseph Ryan's demise. And there's still, people are still questioning, especially in the jury, about Melanie Pawlowski and what that might entail as it concerns Joseph Ryan. Because Joseph Ryan, he was someone who at certain times had custody of J.J. Vallow and also of Tylee Ryan, and he was not, the best in that family, but he was certainly a lot better for them at the time. He was a good role model in a lot of respects too. And the Woodcocks have spoken about how Joseph Ryan's demise was very suspicious, and most certainly we agree at this point that it's very suspicious because nothing has really been explained about, Melanie Gibb and Lori Vallow's attachment, as it were, to Joseph Ryan, and the way that he suddenly just showed up not alive that morning. So, very, very key issue. I'm going to show just a little bit, and hopefully they are good demonstrations of what they saw in terms of weapons, as well as kind of the tarp and also that unmistakable coat, that jacket suit. Thank you. Detective Hermosillo actually said. So one of the key, easily the key pieces of contention, even thus far, has been what did Detective Hermosillo come across and what did he see when he went inside the Daybell property, and also when they searched the property actually in Hawaii. So it says when the police served the search warrant on Lori Vallow Daybell's Rexburg townhome on November 27, 2019, they found 2 silencers, a mask, several guns including 2 rifles, and camouflage suits, as well as 2 Tyvek suits, which are white, full-body personal protective equipment or PPE, used for cleaning up hazards. That means chemical spills, folks, actual physical hazards, what you would consider in a doomsday type of scenario, whether that would be in a bunker, a military compound bunker, or otherwise, kind of a real end of days type of issue. And this is why this channel is so premier when it comes to anything to do with this, because we have gone to some folks who have created basically the best reconstruction, okay, of what they saw. And imagine that this is what you saw when you came into Lori Vallow's home, into her condo, and you saw this kind of thing that was going on. Silencer rounds, allegedly up to 1,000 rounds of actual ammunition in a bag, a couple of rifles, and exactly what you see here. All these kinds of knives, hunting knives, assorted dangerous weapons, and even rounds for what looked like maybe some kind of explosive. And then imagine that as you're going through, you also come across this. Not saying that it would look exactly like this, because we're hoping, everyone's praying for, hopefully, that Detective Hermosillo, when you're dealing with a case of this kind of magnitude, you need to release something. So hopefully they release thumbnail images, kind of composites that represent what they saw inside. But this is a very, very excellent recreation of what it is you would see, okay? And this you cannot mistake. These are yellow or white PPE suits. They're protected, special protection suits for hazmat or hazardous materials. So they had it all. They had a camo suit, a Halloween mask, allegedly at least one Tyvek-based hazmat suit for dealing with chemical waste and serious chemical compounds. And I want you to imagine for a moment, you're going in here, you're going inside Lori Vallow's, specific condo or house, and it's built like a compound. Almost like part of it has a second entrance that almost feels a little bit like maybe a military compound of some kind. And you see these suits on a hanger that unmistakably look like this. You've got a guinea suit for camouflage, being outside, outdoors, and dealing with hazardous material and hazardous explosives. And then you've got a actual Tyvek suit, at least one or two, which are white, and some say it also had a different color as well. But they're hanging up, and they're unmistakably used for dealing with hazardous chemical compounds. So let's say that there was a chemical spill, or there was something else for some reason that both the Daybells were preparing for. This is the suit they immediately were going to put on, essentially. And so you found all this, and you find cartridges and magazines. That's right. Cartridges and magazines covering the surface of the area with the actual bag where all this ammo and so forth is kept. Right? And I want you to imagine, what would the effect and impact be upon you, upon having really come across this? Hermosillo stated that they described the moment he asked where J.J. Vallow was, and Chad Daybell kept looking over his shoulder and didn't have any interest in responding to the question. And this is the exact condo. It's one of the key areas where a lot of this was recovered from, which is just, astounding to see that that's what was going on. And then, thanks to the East Idaho News again, we have the fact that some of their children's items were found here, but there was a lack of any kind of children's toys. There was a lack of any kind of accessories for the children, but they had a physical rental agreement all the same for the actual property. For the storage, where they were storing a lot of this interesting paraphernalia, items like weapons, ammo, and similar. And when you look at it that way, and you kind of look at it through a different lens for a moment, you start to realize, wow, this was this was very, very clear how serious this was. And you wonder, why weren't there neighbors? Why weren't there people who established the houses in that area? Why were they not paying attention to what this actually was, and not only warning other people, but perhaps warning other neighbors in the area who owned the land that this was going on? Because you have to imagine now, your days into the situation, you go inside, you see all of this ammo, you see all of this memorabilia, you see weapons which cannot be mistaken for firearms and weapons and things like that in Lori Vallow's physical home and in the area in a garage that would be used in an apocalypse type of scenario, just sitting around like this, laying out, not locked up as required by law, in a safe or something underground, or just locked up in a required, Tetlon safe and so forth, which then it's legally allowed to be there as long as it's, not in anybody's face, nobody can, get to it and so on. But again, just laying out there for everybody to see, and silencers laying out there. And this is one of the key issues I wanted to raise again with you folks, is given that that's proven to be correct and true, okay, can we at all believe any of Lori Vallow's testimony right now about not knowing, exactly what they were doing? Given some of these weapons and things were found directly in her possession, they're still doing fingerprint testing and so on, but it seems, she handled them as well. Can we really believe anymore that this was Alex Cox, a bad hobby or something that he picked up? Or is it far, far more likely now, based upon all the tests that have been done on these hazmat suits and similar, that both Chad and Lori Daybell were stockpiling these? And that's what I want you to really be pondering very carefully, because it talks about the fact, during the search, they also located Alex Cox's own passport, rope, and duct tape, found inside kind of a cellophane bag, a cell phone, books, several books, in other words, written by Chad Daybell, and various documents, according to the detective Hermosillo. Cox died from what authorities claimed were natural causes, but his body may need to be, put under an autopsy to confirm, what really happened there, too. Because they said that Joseph Ryan, who originally was involved with them, was actually a pretty good guy. They said that he passed away from natural causes. And we still don't have real concrete answers on what happened, with Joseph Ryan. And so it's interesting, they talk about this very, very clearly in the detail of some of the reports that have just come out. That's where officers found the Tyvek suits and the silencers and guns. The barrel of one of the rifles was threaded to fit a silencer. So you couldn't mistake that. Depending on what they found with certain details in the fingerprints and so on, somebody put some kind of muffler or silencer around the outside of that rifle and on the outside of the rifle barrel. And so that's a key piece of evidence. And so, like I said, a lot of people are aiming for the fact that they're going to release some sketches of what these items look like, and also just thumbnail images of some of the items that they recovered. But what I just showed you there, okay, what I just showed you folks, has not been seen before, and it's one of the closest living examples of the products and the items that they found inside there. It looked very, very similar to that. And in some cases, some of the weapons were identical to what I showed you there. And so if you can imagine that, just for a moment. Now you can start to fully grasp the magnitude of what was going on with the Daybells during this time. So thank you again. Continue to spread the word, and continue to get this out to the general public so they can become more aware of exactly what was occurring here. Thank you. Wrapped in black plastic, hefty style bags, and this is a key issue. It's been a key issue ever since it started to debut, and also the autopsy photos were released here. They provided to the Idaho jury graphic detail on Tuesday of how police excavated the rotting corpse of Doomsday mother Lori Vallow Daybell's children. Rexburg Police Department Detective Ray Hermosillo told the court that while executing a search warrant on June 9, 2020, on the property of Lori Vallow's husband Chad Daybell, a patch of grass that was shorter than the areas in the yard caught attention immediately. Hermosillo stated that the evidence recovery team started to remove the top layer of soil, which helped expose 3 large white rocks, and at that point there was a strong odor of decomposition. 2 pieces of wood paneling had been placed under the rocks, and after removing them, the detective stated his team noticed a change in the type of soil, which became moist. We began to see black round objects protruding throughout the dirt in many areas. Only a few inches down, it appeared to be like the texture of a plastic bag, or black plastic hefty bag. Soon detectives observed that it looked like the crown of someone's head in the dirt. As they continued to dig, they exposed what appeared to be a small body wrapped in black plastic, adding that they were eventually able to see and determine it had the hair of J.J. Vallow. It's so quite horrifying discovery. They said that they found a very strong odor directly next to the firmament of soil. Prosecutors claim Vallow Daybell and her husband Chad Daybell killed her own children, 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan, age 16, in September of 2019, and buried them at the property of the Daybell estate, they allege. The 49-year-old has pleaded not guilty to 2 first-degree murder charges. They also allege the couple had killed Daybell's ex-wife, Tammy Daybell, age 49, through a different series of implicated actions. Hermosillo spoke about finding Tylee Ryan's remains buried in the pet cemetery. There was another round blob of just burnt flesh, Hermosillo stated. The detective didn't spare any details, telling jurors about a melted green bucket with flesh and bone fragments. The alleged bone fragments showed that they belonged to a particular human skull. It's just unbelievable when you start really seeing this for what it was. There were 3 or 4 of us that climbed into the hole, and we attempted to lift it out, but it broke apart because it wasn't being held by anything when it came to the skull. Prosecutors stated Monday that Lori Vallow Daybell's personality craved always money, power, and sex, and killed her 2 kids because they were obstacles to having Chad Daybell for herself, allegedly. The alleged murderer, wearing blue dress pants and a pink blouse in court, didn't seem to be paying any attention at that point when Hermosillo discussed the horrifying remains when they found it. Her husband will face a separate trial on the same charges, which began at a later date. And yeah, I want folks to keep in mind, we don't want to talk about Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell that much, just the bare minimum. This case is truly about these 2 innocent children and who failed these children. J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan are what this case is in truth ultimately about. And I can tell you from what we've uncovered, nearly everyone failed these 2 children. And Larry and Kay Woodcock, they had warning signs about the Vallows, but they believed what Lori would tell them, things like that as well. And so, we're doing this in honor, ultimately, folks, of J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan, these two wonderful kids, and how they didn't deserve these absolute horrors, of course, in any stretch to take place, especially, right here in Idaho, which has always been a fairly quiet community. And it just astonishes me to this day, the gruesome way they were discovered, and that the remains of these children were recovered there on that stretch of land in the farmland on the hill, this kind of hilly area there. And it just reminds me, of how lucky we are, all of us, always, to have people who truly, care for our welfare, who are looking out for each of us, and how truly lucky we always are, each of us, to have God looking out for us no matter what. But I wanted to just bring that back up to the forefront, because too often people get away from the fact that this case is truly about these two innocent kids, these two innocent children who had no business dealing with some of these awful things. And when it's said in some of the books and some of the writing that's also now in the court record and so on, that talks about, how Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell and so on saw these kids now as zombies. I mean, it's just unbelievable when you start to peel that back and really ponder what those statements signify. Because these were two innocent kids, they had never heard of anything to do with malaria and COVID-19. They didn't have any kind of vaccines from any of that ridiculous stuff, not even from COVID, and the most shots that they had when they were going to school, early on, they're just innocent kids that were going to school. They had, their shots for the measles and things, but they didn't have anything to do with, this wicked society that's been out there and all of that. They didn't even know what was going on. And the way that the parents, Alex Cox as well, but especially, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, pointed to them as being these dark, evil beings now, and, that they had been taken over, or that they secretly got the vaccines, and, all these things was just a horrifying thing to see and to witness that in truth. Because these were two truly innocent kids. And, they took them away from this world far, far too early. And that's the sad truth, ultimately, that a lot of people have to face up to and acknowledge. Because, for the sake of these kids, we need to acknowledge that. So I'll leave you with that. And of course, what happened in the Yellowstone Park area was very unnatural. And now that they've confirmed Alex Cox's cell phone was pinged apparently in the area of the Daybell estate several different times, on different times of the day, different times of the week and things like that. There's now a lot of allegations pointing to the fact that Tylee's Jeep Wrangler, I guess originally it was bought for Tylee, that Jeep Wrangler was also seen over in Yellowstone, And so, not here, but in video 3, in part 3, we're going to dig into that. We're going to look at what was going on exactly with that Jeep Wrangler. And could it have been possible that Alex Cox was over there, given his cell phone pinging in the Yellowstone area? Could he have been over there, possibly stalking people, or possibly trying to attack someone and so forth? There's a lot of people who still allege to this day that it's possible that the kids, or at least one of the kids, were killed near Yellowstone, and then they just transferred and dumped everything evidence-wise onto the Daybell estate because they were wrapped up in what they were doing and presumed no one would ever find anything. The authorities would never check. So that's certainly possible, okay? Based upon cell phone evidence, that's possible. And so we're going to look at that in video 3 to see whether Alex Cox was out there and whether he ever had either of the children with him near Yellowstone. But this has been, a very important update. It's sobering to consider the real facts of what happened there, the real horrors that occurred there in Boise. And we must get justice, That's what it's about, ultimately. And we're getting justice for the sake of not only Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow, but for any other kids who possibly have been impacted by this whole just house of horrors that is in some way connected to the Daybells, so that other children, no matter what, no matter who they are, no matter where they are, do not experience these same type of unbelievable things in their lives, because as children, they don't deserve that, and they are innocent, and they're certainly innocent when it comes to the world in nearly all cases. So thank you again, and continue to spread the word. Get this the attention that it deserves by the public, and get this in front of people to really start discussing. Thank you. More will be coming.
This pop up on your Instagram?
Yes, I have.
Okay. You didn't take the photograph?
No, I did not.
Okay. You don't know if it's been photoshopped or, it looks like her, right?
Yes.
But you're not positive that whatever's on the photograph or in the photograph is legitimate. You weren't there when the photograph was taken.
I was not there when this photograph was taken.
The only objection I have is that it's not an original. We don't know who the photographer is. We don't know if it's been photoshopped. We don't know if it's been altered in any way.
So they don't know which photograph
response.
Your Honor, that's not the foundation
is
for the admissibility.
being referred to, in other words.
They go to
in this instance,
the weight, not necessarily the admissibility. This witness is
we're not clear on which photograph they have.
He's familiar with her Instagram, and he knows whether it's a fair and accurate depiction of Tylee Ryan.
All right, I've considered that objection. I think what we have here is it will be admitted for illustrative purposes in terms of evidentiary value without further foundation about who precisely or when took the picture or where. If we're going beyond that, I'd have concerns, so it is admitted for the purpose of demonstrating who is shown in the picture. Thank you, Your Honor.
Is the machine on? Thank you. Thank you. Is that the picture of Tylee?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you indicated that you were aware that JJ and Tylee were missing in the fall of 2019, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever learn whether JJ and Tylee had been found?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Where were you when you learned that JJ and Tylee had been found?
I was in my parents' home at Crush.
Okay.
Sorry, just a second. I was in my parents' home in their garage.
Yeah.
All right. And when you became aware of this issue, did you travel somewhere?
I did. It was the day before my wedding. They weren't certain, so I had my wedding. And then the next day I came up to Rexburg.
Okay, what date was that?
It would have been June 11th.
Okay, of what year?
Or June. Of 2020.
Okay. What happened once you got in Rexburg?
I drove up. I didn't know why, but I just felt like I should come up, and so I came up, and I met with Larry and Kay and Woodcock, and
did law enforcement ask you to do anything?
yes, they had asked me if I could identify JJ.
And did you do that?
Yes, I did.
How did that happen?
I drove to a place where they showed me some pictures of him and asked if I could identify him, and I did.
Okay. And those were images showed you by Rexburg police officers and FBI agents, correct?
Yes.
Okay. One moment, please, John.
Which was available to anybody to see on Facebook. It was just public.
And where's the pink pony?
Objection, Your Honor. I understand this is cross, but it's getting pretty far afield.
Oh, all out of this time. It's proper cross.
It's in Gulf Shores, Alabama.
Okay. And then in, as we indicated, October 2nd, you believe you were shot at, and you believe that the Jeep that held the gun that was shooting at you was a Jeep Wrangler,
Yes.
and you believe that to be Tylee's Jeep Wrangler?
Yes, I do.
It was Tyler's Jeep
You indicated that you
Wrangler.
had actually tried to
That's just
follow that Jeep Wrangler, is that right?
For a few seconds, yes.
Okay.
very
And did you get the license plate?
very
I was
interesting.
not able to get the license plate.
How far away from the Jeep Wrangler were you?
At that point, I was very far away. It was, I barely saw it. It was over at the corner of the neighborhood, and I was very far in a distant corner. I just saw that the Jeep had come around that angle and it turned right around and went the other way.
So how far away was the shot that you think came from? You think it came from the Jeep Wrangler? How far away was the Jeep Wrangler from your car when the shot was made?
The car was parked probably a little further than the distance where you're at to me.
Me to you?
Yeah, a little bit further,
30 feet, 20 feet?
somewhere in there.
Okay. And you indicated that only probably 5 people knew where you had lived at the time?
Yes.
And you don't believe this to be a stray bullet or something other than, you're pretty positive that this came from that Jeep?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see a muzzle flash from the Jeep?
I saw what looked like, as I described before, a silencer, but I can't say that I saw the muzzle flash.
And was that in your rear view mirror?
No, straight in front of me.
Straight in front
I was
on the
looking
road.
straight at it.
Okay. So you saw a silencer, but you didn't see any type of flash when the shot was taken?
I can't say for certain that I didn't.
Okay. It's possible that that shot came from somewhere else?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, serious.
You indicated,
serious.
and I think Counsel for the State and I were both somewhat taken aback when you said that you knew the VIN number of the Jeep, and you indicated that you were the insurance agent on that Jeep.
I was no longer the insurance agent, but I ran it for Charles. He had given me the information.
What do you mean by that?
Well, he wanted me to price shop, so he gave me the VIN number for each of the vehicles that they had.
And when was that?
A few months earlier, maybe around April.
Okay. And he had done that in an email or a text or something like that?
Yeah, it was just in my text.
So he was looking at the VIN numbers and looking up the Jeep Wrangler for a very good for good reason.
Do you have that text still?
There was something interesting going on with that.
I'm not sure if it was a text or if it was an email. Honestly,
That
I'm not sure
Jeep,
exactly how I got
ever
that,
since it
that
pulled
bit,
in.
but I know he gave it to me.
Sure.
He may have emailed it.
Go ahead.
I'm not certain which way he gave it to me.
Did you turn that information over to the police or to the prosecutor?
I did, yes.
That email?
No, I turned over all of the VIN number to the detective at the time.
And they didn't ask you how you got the VIN number?
It was a long time ago. I can't tell you for certain. I just told him the VIN number.
Okay.
Wow. Yep.
You indicate that you were rereading some emails from Charles to yourself at some point. Did you turn those emails over to the prosecutor or to the police?
I did, yes.
Okay. And what were those emails about?
The emails were from Charles to the rest of the family, and then some of them were, in his concerns about what he thought was going on in his relationship with Lori as they went through their breakup. And separately, there were other emails that were kind of his evidence that he was giving us of these groups that she was meeting with.
I'm a little bit confused because you indicate that you were rereading emails. I thought, and maybe this is me, I thought they were from Charles to you, not to his family.
It sounded like there were
I am
supposed to
part of his family.
be
He sent them to all of us.
personal
Okay,
emails
so
from
group
Charles.
Emails that you were a part of the group email.
Is the
Correct.
interesting part,
Oh, I
right?
see. Okay.
But they didn't necessarily come directly from him, which is, it's another key aspect to this case. Is, what was
When you
truly
found out
happening
that they had found
during that
the
time.
remains of Tylee and JJ, you indicate that you had a wedding on, looks like June the 10th, and then you went up to Rexburg on June the 11th. Is that right?
Yes, I believe it was the 11th. It might have been the 12th. I didn't review my notes on that either, so I should have.
Okay. And you indicate that you met with Kay and Larry Woodcock.
I did, yes, that morning.
Did you meet with anybody else?
No, I talked to law enforcement over the phone.
Talked to law enforcement over the phone while you were in Rexburg?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't talk to law enforcement over the phone while you were still in Utah or Arizona, or where you were living at the time?
Are you talking about on that specific day?
Yeah. Or the day before, or,
I can't recall specifically if I met with them. I don't think I did, but I might have met with them in person besides the phone call. I did meet with them in person when I looked at the pictures.
Okay.
Wow. Yep.
And so then you said
Something.
that law enforcement asked you... if
It's
you
really
had-
cut. We've done an excellent job uncovering more of the in-depth, inside knowledge that people don't have yet. In September of 2019, 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow and 17-year-old Tylee Ryan disappeared under mysterious circumstances that have stumped officials in all areas. The children's parents never reported the minors missing, yet their family members heard nothing from them in the months that followed. As the investigation pressed on, the case became increasingly convoluted as well. That November, law enforcement visited the home of JJ and Tylee's mother, Lori Vallow, to perform a welfare check, according to the New York Times. Vallow and her husband, Chad Daybell, told police that the children were living in Arizona, leaving authorities suspicious when law enforcement arrived the next day with a search warrant and discovered the couple had abruptly fled. Authorities later located them in Hawaii, where police finally arrested Vallow in February of 2020, months before investigators found JJ and Tylee's remains on Daybell's property. Both were subsequently charged for felonies, though not immediately arrested for murder. That didn't happen until May of 2021, when a grand jury did indeed indict Vallow and Daybell for the children's death, as well as the death of Daybell's first wife. Here's everything we also know from that point. Last November, the extended family notified law enforcement in Rexburg that they had not been able to get in touch with JJ and Tylee since September. In response to the alert, Rexburg police visited Lori Vallow's home personally, where she was living with Chad Daybell, to question them about the minors' whereabouts. According to the police, the couple claimed the children had moved to Arizona right then, where they were living with other relatives, and requested that law enforcement return at a later date. When investigators showed up, the couple had already fled. A few months later, the couple is discovered in Hawaii, even after the Rexburg police pointed out that they were clearly in danger. On January 25th of 2020, police located Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell driving near a beachside resort in Kua, Hawaii. Police searched their car but found no trace of the children and served Vallow with a court order demanding that she bring the children to the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare to be able to be seen in person. According to the Times, Vallow missed that deadline. So, and I wanted to point out before we, because there's some key issues in here, before we move ahead, as I spoke before, this whole Brian Koberger thing is not going to get any further than it has gotten, until June. And this is the important case, most certainly, of the moment. I guarantee the Koberger case will heat up a lot right before June. But this channel is going to be mainly focused directly on key elements, of course, from Lori Vallow's side of the trial of the Daybell double homicide, as well as Chad Daybell's specific trial, because it's heating up. And now that we know that there was an actual shovel they found with DNA on it, and interestingly, footprints there in the shed, I'm as interested as anyone, else is at this point, find out exactly how that was done. We know, of course, that Koberger, he may or may not have had help. I mean, he likely did have help, but there's not really that much that can be said, about any of that. And so, in the final video that I will have put up on Koberger for now, it'll kind of cover issues with the officer who may have clearly been involved in possibly covering key evidence up. But this case, of course, with Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, has started to get so interesting, is the word, that the majority of the contents you're going to see, especially right now, is in relationship to this case. So I just wanted to make that as a caveat. They also found surveillance footage of the Jeep Wrangler, and allegedly that was the actual people. They claimed those were the shooters who shot at Brandon Boudreaux. So I'm going to see if we can get an actual screenshot of that Jeep and be able to put that up for sure. So they arrested Lori Vallow in Hawaii on a $5 million warrant from Madison County, Idaho. She was charged with 2 felony counts of desertion and non-support of the children during the arrest and seizure, as well as resisting or obstructing officers, criminal solicitation to commit crimes, and contempt of court. So she was even charged with contempt of court. I didn't know that until very recently. And it's confirming they have the contempt charges out there. In June of 2020, local law enforcement and FBI traveled to Daybell's compound, where they executed their search warrant for further clues regarding Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow's disappearance. In the ensuing hours, police took Daybell into custody and confirmed that human remains were found on his property. Days after, only days later, in other words, police announced that the remains belonged to J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. The next day, Daybell was officially charged with 2 felony counts of concealment and destruction of evidence. According to CNN News, the probable cause affidavit filed on June 29th in Fremont County, Idaho, describes J.J. Vallow's body as well preserved and allegedly wrapped in double-layer plastic garbage bags under the rocks. Tylee Ryan's body was too damaged by fire and dismemberment with no recognizable features, they claim, as well as her DNA on the pickaxe and the shovel. Per the affidavit, they also conducted an X-ray. In September, Special Prosecutor Robert Wood asked the district judge to combine the couple's cases, and Lori Vallow was charged with 2 felony counts of conspiracy to alter, conceal, and destroy evidence, with 3 misdemeanors for resisting and obstructing officials and solicitation to commit crimes as well as contempt. Nearly a year after the remains were found, the Idaho grand jury indicted them on multiple murder-related charges on May 25th of 2021. Each reportedly faces 2 counts, one for Tylee Ryan and one for J.J. Vallow, of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft, as well as first-degree murder. Additionally, Vallow faces 1 count of grand theft for the children's Social Security benefits, while Daybell also faces 2 charges in connection with another homicide. The number of other people close to the couple that have mysteriously died has been very bizarre. While JJ and Tylee were reported missing in September of 2019, a bizarre set of incidents involving the couple that date back to that July show that when Vallow's brother Alex Cox was shot and killed, Vallow's estranged husband right at that time, Charles Vallow, was shot. I think the way that they phrased that is a little bit mixed up. What they're saying there is Alex Cox shot and killed Charles Vallow, essentially, yeah. At the time, detectives ruled the shooting as self-defense. But that August, Vallow, her children, as well as Cox, moved to Rexburg, Idaho, where Daybell joined them at the end of the month. Then in December, Alex Cox died of unknown causes. There was a mysterious death on Daybell's side of the family. On October 19th of 2019, Daybell's wife, Tammy Daybell, died of natural causes, according to her official obituary. Approximately 2 weeks after her death, Daybell and Vallow were married. According to the Times, law enforcement has since exhumed Tammy's remains and has performed tests on Alex Cox as well. In May of 2021, Vallow and Daybell were received and indicted on the charge of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in Tammy Daybell's demise, while Chad was also charged with first-degree murder and 2 counts of insurance fraud for collecting the life insurance. As the couple came under scrutiny, some of their beliefs raised a lot of eyebrows, notably the involvement in the Preparing a People Project Prepper group. In fact, one of Vallow's friends told Fox 5 that Lori Vallow was 100% into the end times and found herself drawn to Daybell through the fictional Doomsday books that he wrote. Additionally, in the divorce document and the settlement Charles Vallow had filed before his death, he claims Vallow believes she is the god assigned to carry out all 144,000 in July of 2020. And of course, she's most certainly a little bit more unbalanced than that. You know, there's people who take this book like it was the newest Bible. They literally love these books. And I'm going to be interested in seeing what some of these books look like. But again, you heard it right here. And they found a number of these key items that were used in the crime directly inside the shed. So this is going to get interesting. Thank you again. More to come. Story. Chad Daybell's attorney, John Pryor, was seen in the courtroom and also over in the overflow room, the media overflow room. He is today seated in the front row, not too far behind the defense. So we're still, I'm going to see if I can find the kind of exact article that describes how John Pryor got here, but we're still waiting for some kind of update for why John Pryor is actually there at the courthouse. You'll recall, however, that it was confirmed back in December of 2021 during the trial that there was a conflict of interest between Lori Vallow and the attorney that was representing her at the time, Mark Means. It says, the same day as the tweet and the similar news release and the recorded jail call, Chad Daybell told Lori Vallow Daybell that Means needs to represent them. Means also said at a May 2020 court hearing that he represented both Chad and Lori Daybell. On June 9th, 2020, federal and local investigators searched the Daybell estate and discovered the remains of Lori Vallow Daybell's two kids, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. Before calling John Pryor, however, Chad Daybell phoned Mark Means. It is not clear what he discussed with the attorneys, but Mark Means was quietly kicked off the case. The judge in the case also said that he had some concerns about how Mark Means submitted his court rulings as well and his filings. So again, we're not clear on exactly what this means yet, so to speak, but it is curious that John Pryor was there in the courtroom now twice. And he was the one who was present there when Mark Means was actually excused from the case. So could that mean potentially, folks, as some have also speculated recently, that John Pryor has found some kind of backdoor approach, possibly, that he's attempting to get Mark Means inserted back into this trial? You know, it's very, very plausible at this point. We'll have more on this developing story soon, but yes, John Pryor was in the courtroom and he was outside in the media interview room on two occasions, on April 11th and even the morning of April 12th. There is definitely a significant reason for him to continually enter the courtroom chambers and continue to keep going down there, you know, behind the defense table where Archibald is meeting with people. We don't know all of the exact details yet, but it could certainly have to do, possibly, with Mark Means. Thank you to the Idaho Free Press in particular. We've caught John Pryor red-handed here. During the state's voir dire, Special Prosecutor Rachel Smith told jurors there may be a victim in the case whose cause of death is unknown, but the manner of death is also known to be homicide. She asked if that hinders the jury making a decision, and the jury admitted it would not. Daybell's attorney attends the trial. John Pryor, Chad Daybell's attorney, was present in the viewing room for most of the day Monday and also early Tuesday, talking to members of the media and watching the jury selection as it proceeded. Upon his departure, Susan Ryan, the spokesperson for the prosecution, told John Pryor that she thought it was inappropriate that he was there watching and talking with media members and other personnel. John Pryor has told Ryan he could do as he pleased if he wasn't discussing evidence, he claimed, to which Ryan said she had informed the prosecution. So very, very interesting. That means something has certainly been going on here. John Pryor is literally talking, it looks like, to media personnel and others associated with James Archibald. Why? Indeed. Why, after some of the interesting images have now been exposed to the jury, including images of the weapons and many things that were found inside the house, what could possibly have truly been John Pryor's reason for needing to go in there and seek assistance of counsel, or seemingly, right, appear to be looking directly at Jim Archibald and seeking to communicate with Archibald in some fashion? He was also seated directly behind the defense. So I don't know. We don't have enough clarity of the situation yet. But sound off in the comments down below your insights and ideas, and real feedback are appreciated most of all. What do you feel about John Pryor seemingly getting inside the defense chamber behind Jim Archibald more than twice now, and having communicated with Archibald regarding something? Do you think that there is possibility, the report that they are strategizing something or attempting to create perhaps a smokescreen? Do you think that those reports might turn out to be true? Well, sound off in the comments below. We appreciate your insights and feedback on each step of the trial. Thank you. There will be more on John Pryor to come, most certainly.